Have you ever noticed that even when you finally have time to rest, you don't actually know how? Maybe you've been looking forward to the weekend all week. You imagine sleeping in, watching a movie, reading that book you've been meaning to start, doing absolutely nothing. But then Saturday finally arrives, and somehow you still wake up feeling like you're already behind. Before you've even had breakfast, your mind has already started making a list. I should clean the kitchen. I should answer those messages. I should finally organize that closet. I should probably go to the gym. I should get ahead for next week. By lunchtime, you've barely stopped moving. And even if you finally sit on the couch, your body stays still, but your mind doesn't. It keeps looking for the next thing, the next task, the next responsibility, the next reason to get back up. And maybe you've become so used to living like this that it doesn't even seem strange anymore. You just call it being responsible, being productive, being an adult. But what if I told you that constantly feeling like you have to earn your rest isn't something you were born believing? What if somewhere along the way you learned that slowing down meant falling behind? Because here's something I've been thinking about. Nobody teaches us how to rest. We learn how to work. We learn how to achieve, how to improve, how to prepare, how to fix, how to become better. But almost nobody teaches us how to simply exist without feeling guilty about it. And eventually, we become adults who don't know the difference between resting and wasting time. If that's you, I want you to know something before we go any further. This video isn't about convincing you to stop caring about your goals. It's not about becoming lazy. It's not about avoiding responsibility. It's about understanding why, even after you've done enough, it still doesn't feel like enough. Maybe this has happened to you. You finally finish everything on your list. The dishes are clean. Your emails are answered. The laundry is folded. You even worked out. By every reasonable measure, you deserve to relax. But instead of feeling peaceful, you immediately start wondering, what else should I be doing? It's almost automatic. Your brain doesn't celebrate finishing. It immediately starts searching for another problem to solve, another task to complete, another way to be useful. It's almost like rest makes you uncomfortable. Not because you're busy, because being still feels unfamiliar. Or maybe you're the kind of person who says yes to everything. Helping a friend move, covering another shift, taking on one more project, being the reliable one, the responsible one, the person everyone can count on. People admire you for it. And honestly, part of you likes that. It feels good to be needed. It feels good to be dependable. But sometimes, after everyone goes home, you're left with almost nothing for yourself. You don't even remember the last time you rested without feeling like someone else deserved your time more than you did. Or maybe your version looks different. Maybe nobody is asking anything from you. Maybe the pressure comes entirely from yourself. You wake up already thinking, I need to make today count. You measure your day by how much you accomplished. If you crossed 10 things off your list, it was a good day. If you didn't, you feel strangely disappointed. Even if you were tired, even if you needed a break, even if nothing bad happened, your worth quietly becomes tied to your productivity. Not because anyone is forcing you to. Because somewhere, you started believing that being productive makes you a better person. And here's the strange part. Most people don't even realize they're doing this. It feels normal because almost everyone around us is doing the same thing. Think about the conversations we have. What have you been up to? So busy. Same. Life's crazy. We've been nonstop. It's almost become a badge of honor. Being overwhelmed, being exhausted, being constantly busy. Somehow, we've started treating burnout like proof that we're trying hard enough. Almost like resting is something you should apologize for. Imagine telling someone, I spent the afternoon doing absolutely nothing. How many of us immediately feel the need to explain ourselves? I was really tired. I wasn't feeling well. I've been working a lot lately. Notice that. We don't just say we rested, we defend it as if rest needs a justification. I think one of the saddest things is that many people have forgotten what genuine rest even feels like. Not scrolling, not multitasking, not watching TV while answering emails, not listening to a podcast while cleaning, just being, sitting outside, listening to birds, taking a slow walk without checking your phone, drinking tea without simultaneously planning tomorrow. Those moments feel almost uncomfortable now. Not because they're bad, because they're unfamiliar. Our minds have become so accustomed to constant stimulation that silence starts to feel loud. And maybe that's why you're here. Maybe you're tired, not just physically, mentally, emotionally. The kind of tired that sleeping doesn't fix. Because you've been carrying something much heavier than work. You've been carrying the belief that resting has to be earned, that your value depends on what you produce, that slowing down means you're falling behind. If you've believed that for years, of course resting feels difficult. How could it not? Because the problem was never that you don't know how to sit still. The problem is that sitting still no longer feels safe. And that's where I think this story really begins. Because to understand why rest feels so uncomfortable, we have to go much further back to the moment your brain first learned that being useful was the same thing as being worthy. I don't think most of us wake up one morning and decide, I'm going to feel guilty every time I rest. That belief usually grows so slowly, you don't even notice it's happening. It starts with little moments, sometimes so ordinary. They don't seem important at all. Maybe when you were a kid, you brought home a report card and everyone got excited. You were praised, celebrated. Maybe someone said, I'm so proud of you. There's nothing wrong with that. Children need encouragement, but if those moments were the only times you felt deeply seen, your brain quietly started making a connection. Achievement equals love. Not because anyone meant to teach you that, because that's how children make sense of the world. Or maybe you were the easy child, the one who didn't cause problems, the one who helped, the one who didn't ask for much. Adults loved saying things like, she's so mature, she's so responsible, she never gives us any trouble. It probably felt good. You weren't trying to earn approval. You were just surviving the only way you knew how. But years later, you become an adult who struggles to ask for help. Because somewhere inside, you still believe being low maintenance is what makes people love you. Maybe you grew up in a family where everyone worked incredibly hard. Your parents sacrificed everything. Long hours, 2 jobs, constant stress. You watched them push through exhaustion. You admired them. You still do. But children don't just copy what adults say, they copy what adults do. If everyone around you treated rest like something that only happened after complete exhaustion, your brain probably learned that too, without anyone ever saying the words. School reinforced it. Think about it. From the time we're little, we're rewarded for output, good grades, perfect attendance, finishing assignments, being productive, meeting deadlines. Very few people ever ask, are you taking care of yourself? How are you feeling? What helps you recover? We become experts at performing, but beginners at resting. Then adulthood arrives, and suddenly, the game gets even harder. Now there are careers, bills, relationships, fitness goals, side hustles, financial goals, learning new skills, keeping up with everyone online. It never really ends. There's always another mountain, another certification, another promotion, another goal. And if you're someone who genuinely enjoys growing, that can become confusing because growth is wonderful. But constant striving without recovery eventually becomes suffering. There's a quote I think about sometimes. Fish don't notice water because they've lived in it their entire lives. And I wonder if we're the same with productivity. We've been surrounded by it for so long that we don't even question it anymore. Every app wants your attention. Every platform tells you to optimize your life. Wake up earlier. Read more books. Build another habit. Track your sleep. Track your calories. Track your finances. Track your mood. Track your water. Track your steps. Even rest has become something we're trying to optimize. Instead of asking, did I enjoy today? We ask, was today productive? Those are very different questions. And here's what makes it even harder. Productivity feels good. At least at first. Every time you cross something off a list, your brain gives you a tiny reward. You feel accomplished, useful, capable. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem begins when accomplishing things becomes the only way you know how to feel good about yourself. Because then, doing nothing doesn't feel neutral. It feels threatening. Imagine someone loses their job. What's one of the first thoughts many people have? I feel useless. Not, I miss the work. I feel useless. That's a painful sentence because it reveals something deeper, somewhere. Many of us stop believing that our value comes from simply being human. We started believing our value comes from what we contribute, from what we achieve, from what we produce. And if that's the belief you're carrying, of course, rest feels uncomfortable. Because every quiet moment feels like a moment you're no longer proving yourself. I remember reading something once that really stayed with me. It said, if your self-worth depends on your productivity, you'll never actually get to enjoy your accomplishments. Think about that. You reach one goal. Instead of celebrating, you move the finish line, you finish a project. Your brain immediately asks, what's next? You finally clean the house. Now you notice the garage? You save your first $1,000? Now you're worried it isn't enough. You get promoted. Now you're wondering if you're doing enough to deserve it. There's no finish line because the goal was never really the goal. The goal was trying to feel worthy. And that's a race. Nobody wins. Sometimes I wonder how many beautiful moments we've accidentally rushed through because we felt guilty for slowing down, watching the sunset, while thinking about tomorrow's meeting, playing with your child, while mentally answering emails, having dinner with your family, but never really being there, taking a vacation, only to spend half of it worrying about what you'll come back to. Your body was present, but your mind never got permission to arrive. And maybe that's the hardest part. The world doesn't usually tell you to stop. In fact, it often rewards the opposite. People admire the person who works through lunch, who answers emails at midnight, who never takes vacation, who always says yes. But what nobody sees is what that person quietly loses along the way. their peace, their energy, their curiosity, their ability to simply enjoy being alive. Because eventually, when every moment becomes about producing, you stop experiencing your life, you start managing it. And those are not the same thing. So if you've ever felt guilty for taking a nap, for spending a quiet afternoon outside, for watching the rain, for sitting in silence, for doing absolutely nothing, I don't think you're broken. I think you've spent years living inside a culture that taught you your worth had to be earned. But there's something your brain still doesn't know. Something incredibly important. The part of you that feels guilty isn't trying to hurt you. It's actually trying to protect you. And once you understand why, everything starts to make a little more sense. So if the part of you that feels guilty isn't your enemy, then what is it? I think it's something much simpler. It's a part of your brain that's still trying to keep you safe. The interesting thing about our brains is that they don't care very much about happiness. They care about survival. If a certain behavior helped you feel accepted, protected, or loved in the past, your brain remembers it. Even years later, it says, let's keep doing that. Not because it's the healthiest option, because it worked before. Imagine you're crossing a busy street. You don't have to consciously remind yourself to look both ways. Your brain already knows. It learned. Now imagine your brain also learned. When I'm useful, people appreciate me. When I achieve, people notice me. When I keep everyone happy, I avoid conflict. When I'm always busy, nobody can criticize me. Those lessons become automatic too. Eventually, you stop choosing them. You just live them. That's why guilt can feel so irrational. Logically, you know it's okay to rest. You would never tell someone you love that they have to earn a nap. You'd probably say, you've been working hard, go take a break. But when it's your turn, everything changes. Suddenly there's another rule. I should finish one more thing. I haven't done enough. Tomorrow will be easier if I keep going. Your logical mind knows one thing. Your nervous system believes another. And when those two disagree, the nervous system usually wins. This is something psychologists sometimes talk about. Not because your brain enjoys making life difficult, but because familiarity often feels safer than change. Even when the familiar thing is exhausting. That's why people sometimes stay in jobs they hate, relationships that make them unhappy, or routines that slowly burn them out. Not because they're weak, because predictable feels safe. And if you've spent years believing, I'm valuable when I'm productive, then resting feels unfamiliar. And unfamiliar can feel dangerous, even when it isn't. Have you ever taken a vacation only to spend the first 2 or 3 days feeling restless? You finally have nowhere to be. Nothing urgent to finish. Deadlines. No meetings. And somehow you can't enjoy it. You keep checking your phone. You wonder what's happening at work. You think about all the things waiting for you when you get back. Some people even say, I need a vacation after my vacation. I don't think that's because vacations don't work. I think it's because our minds don't know how to slow down overnight. Your body may have left work, but your nervous system didn't get the memo. Burnout rarely happens in one dramatic moment. It's usually much quieter than that. At first, you stop doing hobbies. You tell yourself you'll come back to them later. Then you stop calling friends as often. You're just busy. Then your patience gets shorter. Small things irritate you. You don't laugh as much. Music doesn't feel the same. Your favorite shows feel like background noise. Weekends stop feeling refreshing. Sleep helps, but somehow you're still tired. Not because you need more sleep, because you've been emotionally running a marathon without ever crossing a finish line. One of the saddest symptoms of burnout isn't exhaustion, it's numbness. When you stop looking forward to things, not because you don't care, because you don't have enough energy left to feel excited. You still show up. You still get things done. From the outside, people think you're doing great. Inside, everything starts feeling gray. That's the danger of never resting. It doesn't always make you stop functioning. Sometimes, it slowly takes away your ability to enjoy your own life. I think we've misunderstood what strength looks like. We often imagine strong people as the ones who keep pushing, who never complain, who never slow down, who always have more to give. But look at nature. Every living thing has rhythms. The ocean comes in, then goes back out. The seasons change. Trees lose their leaves. Animals hibernate. Even your heart doesn't spend all its time contracting. Between every heartbeat, there's a tiny moment of release. Imagine if your heart never relaxed. It wouldn't be strong. It would fail. Why do we expect something different from ourselves? Sometimes people say, I'll rest when things calm down. I used to believe that too, but life has a funny way of replacing one busy season with another. Finish one project, another begins. Pay one bill, another arrives. Reach one milestone, a new goal appears. If you're waiting for life to hand you permission to rest, you might be waiting forever. Because life isn't designed to pause itself. We have to learn how to create pauses, and maybe that's the part nobody teaches us. Rest isn't something that magically appears. It's something we protect. We schedule meetings, appointments, deadlines, birthdays, flights. We put all of those on our calendar. But when it comes to rest, we often leave it until the end. If there's time. There usually isn't, because something always feels more important. Until one day, your body decides for you, through anxiety, through illness, through exhaustion, through tears that seem to come out of nowhere. The body has a remarkable way of asking for what the mind keeps denying. The beautiful thing is, your nervous system can learn something new. It learned to associate worth with productivity, which means it can also learn that rest is safe, that slowing down doesn't make you irresponsible, that your value doesn't disappear because you took an afternoon off. But learning that doesn't happen all at once. It happens in tiny moments, tiny choices, tiny acts of kindness toward yourself. And those small moments are much more powerful than they seem. Because every time you rest, without apologizing for it, you're teaching your brain a completely different story, one it may have never heard before. So, if your brain learned that rest had to be earned, how do you teach it something different? I don't think the answer is forcing yourself to do nothing. That usually doesn't work. Because then resting becomes another task. Another thing you're trying to do perfectly, and somehow we've managed to turn even self-care into something we can fail at. We buy the journal, the meditation app, the morning routine, the evening routine, the supplements, the planner, and before long, we're stressed about relaxing correctly. I don't think that's what we're looking for. I think what we really want is permission. Permission to stop feeling like every minute has to be useful. Permission to leave something unfinished. Permission to say, that's enough for today. That sentence, that's enough. It sounds so simple, but for many people, it's one of the hardest sentences they'll ever learn because your mind immediately argues back. But you can do a little more. You're wasting time. Someone else is working harder. You'll regret stopping. Notice something. Those thoughts sound certain, but certainty doesn't make them true. They're just familiar. What if, instead of believing every thought, you became curious about it? The next time your mind says you should be doing something productive, try asking, why? Not in a judgmental way, just with curiosity. What exactly am I afraid will happen if I rest? Will people stop loving me? Will I suddenly become lazy? Will one quiet afternoon ruin my future? Or have I simply spent years believing something that no longer serves me? Sometimes one honest question can interrupt years of automatic thinking. Another thing I've learned is that rest looks different for everyone. For some people, rest is taking a nap. For someone else, it's painting, gardening, cooking without rushing, listening to music with no other agenda, reading one chapter of a book, watching the rain, taking a slow walk, calling someone they love, sitting with their cat while the afternoon passes by. The activity isn't what makes it rest. It's your relationship with it. If you're constantly thinking about the next thing, your body may be sitting still, but your mind is still sprinting. Real rest isn't only about stopping your body. It's about letting your mind realize it doesn't have to solve anything. Right now, I want you to imagine something. Imagine meeting yourself 10 years from now. Not the version who accomplished everything. Just you. Do you think that future version would be disappointed because you took one afternoon to recover? Or do you think they'd gently smile, knowing that learning to rest was one of the reasons you were able to keep going? Sometimes we act as though every small pause will ruin our future. But more often, those pauses are exactly what protect it. There's another belief that quietly keeps many of us trapped. The belief that rest is the opposite of ambition. I don't think that's true. I think the opposite of ambition is giving up. Rest isn't giving up. Rest is maintenance. Think about an athlete. Nobody expects them to train 24 hours a day. Recovery is part of becoming stronger. Muscles grow during recovery, not while they're being pushed. The same is true emotionally. You don't become wiser while constantly rushing. You become wiser when you have enough space to actually hear yourself think. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is close the laptop, even though there are still emails waiting. Leave the dishes until tomorrow. Say no to one more obligation. Go to bed because you're tired, not because you finally earned sleep. Drink your coffee or your tea without checking your phone. Watch the sunset without trying to take the perfect picture. Have dinner without multitasking. These moments seem small, almost insignificant, but they slowly teach your nervous system. We're safe. Nothing bad happened because we slowed down. We're allowed to exist without constantly proving ourselves. And eventually, those moments begin to add up. Healing often looks much quieter than we imagine. We expect some dramatic breakthrough, one life-changing realization, one perfect morning routine, but most healing looks repetitive. It looks like choosing kindness over self-criticism again and again and again. It looks like catching yourself when guilt appears and saying, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I don't need that rule anymore." That doesn't make the guilt disappear overnight. but it changes your relationship with it. Instead of fighting yourself, you begin leading yourself. There's a quote I love. It says, "You treat yourself the way you believe you deserve to be treated." I think about that a lot because sometimes the hardest part isn't learning to rest. It's believing you're worthy of rest. Not after you accomplish something, not after you become more successful, not after everyone else is taken care of. Now, as you are, because your worth was never hiding. At the end of your to-do list, one day, years from now, you probably won't remember most of the emails you answered. You won't remember every load of laundry, every meeting, every task, but you'll remember how your life felt, whether you were present, whether you laughed, whether you noticed the changing seasons, whether you watched the sunset, whether you gave yourself permission to actually live the life you were working so hard to build. That thought always makes me pause because it's possible to become so busy building a life that we forget to experience it. So maybe today, you don't need to become a different person. Maybe you don't need another productivity system or another habit tracker or another way to optimize yourself. Maybe you just need one small moment where nothing is expected of you. 5 quiet minutes, a slow walk, a cup of tea, a nap, not because you've earned it, because you're human. And humans were never meant to live like machines. If nobody has told you this recently, let me be the one to say it. You don't have to deserve rest. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to apologize for it. Your value does not disappear when you stop producing. It never did. Maybe that's what learning to rest really means. Not becoming less ambitious, not caring less about your dreams, but finally believing that the person chasing those dreams also deserves compassion, including from themselves. If this video helped you feel a little less alone, I hope you'll stay. This channel is simply a place to slow down, to understand yourself a little better, and to keep growing without pretending to have all the answers. If that sounds like the kind of space you've been looking for, you're always welcome here. Take care of yourself, get some rest, and I'll see you in the next one.